Smooth 98.1 here. We are 30 minutes gone past 7 o'clock. It is freshly pressed for a feel good Friday. You know what? Just a Friday at this point. We don't know about the stories. And joining me for the next half hour, I've got two gentlemen, the two C's of Chetawaze and Mr. C. Good morning and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cheta. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Wonderful. Great to have you on the show. And Mr. C, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
All right, so fantastic having both of you on the show, and of course, you as well. If you are listening to us, tuning in online on www.smooth981.fm or on radio in your cars, wherever you are, or just even viewing us on youtube.com/smooth981fm Lagos, you can also be a part of this conversation. All you need to do is leave a comment up on the live stream on YouTube, tweet at us at smooth981fm, or send a WhatsApp message to 0809 440 Wherever you are in the world, you can always be a part of this conversation. Now, let's start the conversational ball rolling, shall we? And I'm going to start things off with a picture, which I'll be asking for your opinion about. Now, this headline comes in from the Vanguard newspaper. Obasanjo, Peter Obi, Wike, and three other governors meet in London. So the former president was on Thursday spotted in a photograph which made its rounds online with presidential candidates of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, PDP party governor, and current thorn in the side of the party, Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, and some of his party allies in the persons of the Oyo State governor, the Abia State governor, the Benue State governor as well. Now, Cheta, this comes a week after the former president hosted the presidential candidate of the APC in his Abeokuta home, 48 hours after Tinubu's London meeting with Wike was made public, and also just hours before another strategic meeting took place between Wike and the PDP presidential candidate. The back and forth has left interested observers trying to put the puzzle pieces together. What have you come up with?
It's interesting seeing Wiki being the beautiful bride, but not exactly, uh, 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 not exactly surprising. When you consider that he's the governor of the second most economically important state in the country, and he's one who has used the state's resources in an unrestricted manner for his personal play. The question is, what does he get out of all of this? And I suspect that one of the things that he would push for, remember that his constitutional immunity ends on May 29 next year. So I suspect that he's looking for a soft landing after his immunity ends. He's playing all sides in order to get the best possible deal, and the question becomes who can give that best possible deal. So in a 48 72 hour time period, he's met with Tinubu, he's met with Atiku, he's met with Peter Obi, and then there's that shadow of Olusegun Obasanjo tying it all. It's just very interesting. But having said that, at SBM Intelligence, we have a five-pillar framework for analyzing the winnability of elections, and one of those pillars is the opposition's unity of purpose. And at the moment, it doesn't appear that the opposition is united. There's the internal squabble in the PDP, which is quite spectacular, and then the fact that Labour remains a small player in the whole game, in effect, a spoiler. If the PDP can solve their fissures, Atiku and Wike come to some accommodation, and then they bring Labour on side somehow, one doesn't know what deal can be offered at this point, given the intransigence of Peter Obi supporters, for example. It's going to be, at the moment, the election is APC's to lose. That's just the brutal fact. Um, and it would the one of the demands that I know that Wike has, if Atiku bows to that demand, which is the removal of Iyocha Ayu as PDP head honcho, um, it's not going to be a pretty look for Atiku in terms of confidence by other players within the PDP. So it's just going to be very interesting calculations going forward.
Well, Cheta, you made a statement of uh, opinion that you said is a brutal fact, which is that this is the APCs to lose. To
They
which
are
a
the
lot of
incumbent
people would
party.
say,
They are
and
the incumbent party.
expand on
Let's
that.
not, yeah, let's not forget that. I'm going to come out very openly. I don't want the APC to win next year's election, but they are the incumbent party. And we
Which
must
means,
live. We must live with that reality.
Okay,
mm,
Chacha, quick question. Because if during the first round of next year's election, P2P doesn't come in the first two and there's a runoff, do you then see a possibility where the PDP at that point will then team up with P2P against, say, the APC? That's one. Then wait, hold
If
on.
Okay,
Two, Iyorchia Ayu made a promise to resign as chairman of the PDP if a northern presidential candidate was selected. So it's not necessarily a demand of Wike that he goes, it's that the man should honor his promise.
but the man has sat tight. That's the problem. So see, let's remove Iyocha Ayu. The fact that he's sat tight and he has a relationship going back with Atiku going back some ways, means that it has had to become a demand that he leaves. Having said that, I'm not sure I agree with the way you framed your question. If in the first round of the election, because we've never had a runoff in our history. So it's if we have a runoff next year, it will be the first time. But in my view, if there's a runoff, then if Peter Obi comes third and there is a runoff, Peter Obi is going to make a deal with Atiku, not with Tinubu, because for a start, Peter Obi's home region will not support a deal with Tinubu. When you consider the fact that in all of Tinubu's consultations thus far, Tinubu has completely ignored the Southeast, has not
Right.
visited the Southeast, has not spoken with Southeast elders. And as a matter of fact, there was a time that he actually asked Southeast elders, Southeast APC elders, to come to Abuja to meet him, and that has not gone unnoticed in the region. People noticed that for other places he went to visit. So why is it when it is our own that he's asking us to come and see him? That is a problem. Um, so I suspect that the APC's calculations are predicated on winning at the first ballot.
all right, well, meetings are in the air. We've got this one in from the Tribune. Tinubu, Amechi, Lawan, and others to meet in Nigeria. This is supposed to go on in Abuja next week, and expected at the meeting are former and serving governors, former ministers, and federal lawmakers who sought that APC presidential ticket. And also, it's supposed to hold the 22 presidential aspirants and Tinubu, of course. Your thoughts on this, Mr. C?
Okay, so very quickly, the APC is trying to put its house in order ahead of the next general election. And we must remember that not all of the aspirants were seemingly happy with the emergence of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the flag bearer of the APC. So that needs to be put in context. For example, you have a chieftain of the APC in the person of Rotimi Amechi. Ever since the primary, he's been very quiet. Yes, he's resigned as Minister of Transport, but he's been extremely quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to get people like that on board because he's not been heard to say anything or support anything. Even his political associates in River State have equally been rather quiet. So let's hope that this meeting will bring out the results they hope to get because we mustn't also forget the selection for the general election next year did not go down well with everyone. Some people are still understandably miffed about the selection, but at the end of the day, he had the right and prerogative to choose who he wanted to run with, and he's exercised that option. So it's
Can I add something to what Mr.
Go
C has
ahead,
said?
Cheta.
Yeah, remember, if you remember a few days ago, governors pointed out to the president that elections may not hold in the northwest, and one of the reasons that they gave was the fact that what do you call it was the fact that the candidates who were selected as Tinubu's vice. as Tinubu's running mate. Now, that is indicative of the fact that at least three Northwest governors, namely Ganduje of Kanu, El Rufai of Kaduna, and Bagudu of Kebbi, are very unhappy with the selection. Remember that three of them had expected to be named running mates. And as a matter of fact, remember that Ganduje was always pictured and videoed following Tinubu about everywhere
Mm.
prior to the emergence of Shetima. But since Shetima's emergence, he's cooled off. So the same way the PDP has some internal fissures to patch up, the APC also has. But going back to what I said earlier, the APC is the incumbent, so it's theirs to lose.
Chota, I want to take a divergent opinion, and I'll explain why. If
I
you
want to take some messages, so it'll need to be quick.
Okay,
Mr.
very
C.
quick. So if you take all the major indices by which you can review a government's performance, I'm not sure there's any you can point out or any listener can point out to that we can even give the government a pass mark.
You
So when we
are
say
you are talking on the assumption that performance has always been an issue in Nigerian elections.
no, that it
All right,
hasn't been before doesn't mean it
gentlemen,
won't
I'm
be.
gonna have to take this back and take it to the messages now. So let's have a look at what you have to say. Sam from Otta up on WhatsApp says, "I think something is fundamentally wrong with our politicians because they're leaving to." They leave their shots to foreign land, not even in any African country. So why wash our dirty laundry outside? Sam asks. Whilst Nero Cello from Uguru says, it's clear that you're not dealing with Wike but four other state governors as well, that they're in power does not make the election the APCs to lose. I think APC would gladly want the rerun to happen. Whilst Shegun says, as we are speaking, all the leading presidential candidates are meeting in the land of our colonial masters, wasting forex and planning on the way forward for Nigeria from 2023. He goes on to say it's also likely that they have their personal foreign doctors who they'll pay secret visits to. Criticism of the government is easy, but none of the candidates are showing the specific direction they want to take to make Nigeria succeed. Real progress is a long way away, says Shegun. Okay, let's take a look at the next article. We need to keep things going. We'll look at this one still. Oh boy. From the Premium Times, let's take a look at this headline. Says tension in Maiduguri as Borno government seals NNPP office ahead of Kwankwaso's visit. So I'm going to ask for your thoughts on this, Mr. C, as I just give a little of the information out and then we'll be able to talk about it. So this is armed police officers, by the way, took over the state secretariat of the New Nigerian People's Party following its closure by the Borno state government on yesterday. And the office was declared illegal and it was then sealed by the government, which said that it was supposed to be used as a residential building. And however, the timing of this all is a bit suspect now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is very much suspect, Shopper. So let's move back. That building wasn't open. That campaign office wasn't open this week. The party office was certainly not open this week. So the Borno State Board has always known about the existence of these buildings. It's not a new fact. But on the eve of the visit of the presidential flag bearer of the NNPP to Borno State, you then resort to this primitive and outdated method of sealing the property. I'm not holding forth for the NNPP. If they truly violated the building code or the housing code, yes, then they should face the appropriate sanctions. But to do this now, on the eve, calls into question the motive behind the move. Are you seeking to enforce the law? Are you seeking to deny a political party the opportunity to present itself and its candidates to the people and speak to what they want to do? Now, the police in Borno State came out and said they wanted to prevent a breakdown of law and order. This is wonderful because in the same Borno State, terrorists and criminals violently attack people, operate for us, and this same police force is nowhere to be seen as it's happening live. Now, an event has not happened, and they are there to prevent the breakdown of law and order. Kudos to all of them.
What do you see happening as a result of this action?
So, what will happen is the bigger shots will speak to the bigger shots in Abuja. I want to believe this rally will still hold, but maybe not in the form in which it was originally envisaged. But at the end of the day, the Constitution is clear on this. The people have a right to gather. The people have a right to express their opinions, and if they can't do it at that venue, they'll probably do it at some other venue.
All right, so let's take a look at this next one. We'll stick with the police and 2023 as well. From this day newspaper, police to deploy sweepers to check explosive threats. Okay, so the Inspector General of Police actually made this disclosure: the explosives, ordnance disposal slash chemical, biological, radioactive, and nuclear command in Lagos. And these sweepers are supposed to be particularly targeted at potential threats around the 2023 general elections. Chesa, can you speak to this, please?
I don't have anything really to say about it, other than the fact that I want to beg and plead with the police that these sweepers and all of be properly trained. If we go back 10 years, do you remember in February 2012, a policeman who tried to defuse a bomb in Kaduna and ended up being killed by said IED?
Hmm.
That image has stuck in my head. Um, so for me, that is the main thing. Are you going to train these people, these bomb sweepers, these mine sweepers properly to do their jobs? Every other thing pales in comparison. Okay. Having said that, the fact that that's for an election, they are talking of deploying bomb sweepers and all of that across the country. It's sort of indicative of where we are. That despite all the tales, they'd rather they tell us that the truth is that we have a security problem.
All right, very quickly, let's look at this next article. It comes in from the Daily Post. Police recruitments PSC union to embark on indefinite strike. Now, we heard from the chairman of the Joint Union Congress of the Police Service Commission, Mr. Adoyi, who I'm going to quote right now. He said, we're embarking on an indefinite strike from Monday, August 29th, to show how discontent with how discontent we are, I guess, with the way the PSC is being run by the chairman of the commission and the flagrant disregard for the Constitution, the courts of law, and the PSC by the Inspector General, by the IGP. So, Mr. C, I mean, obviously, it seems like we're in the season of strikes, but what would you say about the reasons behind this?
Okay, so I'll speak to the reasons. He's made some very serious allegations against the Inspector General of Police that he is usurping the authority and the powers and the functions of the Police Service Commission. And these are allegations that cannot be dismissed or swept under the proverbial carpet. However, the method chosen to protest is wrong. If you allege or you reasonably believe that a course of action or a course of actions by a public officer are in the wrong direction, then the proper thing to do is to go to court to get a pronouncement on the legality or validity of the actions taken and seeking an order reversing any illegal or unlawful course of action that has been taken. This resort to strikes everywhere in Nigeria is unproductive, it's unfruitful, and it rarely ever gets the job done, especially if the party you're supposedly striking against is recalcitrant and indifferent.
Okay.
And to build strong institutions, strong public institutions, we cannot continue to resort to strikes. We need to strengthen the power of the judiciary. We need to strengthen our belief in the ability of the judiciary to uphold the law at every single turn. And the only way to do that is to file an action in court. No matter how long it takes, stay the course. You will then get a judicial pronouncement that is binding.
Okay, so but what would you say to the commission who have already come out and said that this thing is already written down? It's that, and so the fact that there's now this tussle over the which body should be responsible for recruitment, you also say this needs to go to.
So yes, it's been written down, but because of what has happened, a judicial pronouncement is required. Do not forget that what is written down is the provision, the letter of the law. You then need an interpretation as to that letter of the law, so that not just for this IGP, but for future IGPs who would want to toe the same line, in the face of that judicial pronouncement, they would possibly have a rethink.
Okay, this next story is Okay, this next story is very interesting and goes to education. From the Nation, UN urges Nigeria to raise education vote by 13%. So the United Nations yesterday told Niger or urged Nigeria rather to raise its education budget from 7% to 20% because they're worried that we may not achieve the global agenda for universal, inclusive, and equitable basic education for all school age children by 2030. So, Chata, I'll come to you for this, considering the fact that this has been a recommendation for how long now of
This
increasing
used
the
to be
budget,
26%.
yeah, to this, and we've never even come close. What would you say about this urging?
Well, it's just what it is. They are urging, and at least I can assure you that the outgoing government will not do it. One thing that's a little talked about facts is that under Buhari, every year since Buhari came to power, the education budget has reduced. And now it's I think it's 5.4% or something like that. It was
7.39.
7.9%. 4.39. It was 7.9% when he started, and every year it's the proportion of the education. It speaks to the priorities of the governments, and education is clearly not a priority. I would keep using the example of the current ASU strike, in as much as I'm not 100% in support of ASU, but the fact that they've allowed the strike to linger, they've allowed schools to be closing all over the north without as much as batting an eyelid. Just is that all of that is indicative of the pride of place education holds, and that is a very very tiny pride of place, if it can be called that at all. Now here's something. Um, Last week, the NBS launched the multiple indicator cluster survey. It's an almost 800-page report which I've sat down to jack, and the section on education makes for frightening reading, very very frightening reading. We're talking of a situation where um, about 25% of primary school age children are out of school in Nigeria. That tells you about where we are and where
I'm
we are
so
going.
happy that you brought this up because although what has been on everybody's
Happy,
lips is
you should
ASU,
be terrified, Shokwe.
I'm yes, I'm no, but the fact that it is even making it into the conversation because, like I was saying, all that has been on when it comes to education, the number one thing that people talk about is the ASU
Again,
strike,
again,
which you have said.
I keep saying it. If it were left to me, and when I was on last Friday,
Mm.
I said it very clearly. If it were left to me, I would let the government let go of all universities except the six first generation universities, and then let those ones be standards for private actors to emulate. It's this simple. The real damage in Nigeria's educational system is done at basic education. That's
Ah,
where,
thank
so
you.
by the time many of these materials, many of these inputs, let's use that word. By the time many of these inputs get to the university level, they are already damaged beyond repair. We are wasting everybody's time. That's just is bitter, but that's just it. Yes, also have legitimate grievances, but their problem is the smallest problem in the education sector. The real problem is at basic education.
I have no words. Mrs. E, do you want to say anything? Thank you. That's all I can say. Keep on sending your messages in 0809 444 That's for WhatsApp. You can also tweet at us. We are at Smooth981FM. If you tag us in your tweets, I'll be able to read them out. And you can also go over to youtube.com/ Smooth981FM Lagos and leave your comments up on the live stream. And I'll take this one on YouTube from Olaolu Olagunju, who says, oh, it's going to be a great day with Cheta and Mr. C. Loving the work so far. Going over to WhatsApp, Anthony, Tony from Marine Beach says, how on earth can Obi come third? Nigerians are too tired with the old brand of politicians to let that happen. All right. Whilst Dami
Shokped,
from,
may I have permission to explain that very, very sharply?
okay,
People
quickly.
don't, I think those of us in Nigeria's middle class don't understand just how cynical the lower classes have become. In my view, Obi is heads and shoulders above all the other candidates. But, and this is a big but the lower classes have become completely cynical and are entirely cash and carry. Obi does not have the resources to play cash and carry politics with them. There's a disconnect between the middle classes and the lower classes, and we, the middle classes, have failed in that respect. So that failure is going to come back to bite us.
Well, also politics is a long game, and even if 2023 doesn't turn out the way you wanted, you can also always continue to work for 2027. Just putting it out there. All right, Dami from Makuradu says it's election season. Politicians are meeting everywhere. I'm willing to bet that addressing the welfare of ordinary citizens is not on the agenda. It's about power, not the responsibility that comes with that power. And now I'll take things over to this next article, which comes in from the Daily Trust. 1,086 oil spills recorded in 7 years in Bayelsa. That's according to the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. I cannot wrap my mind around this number, Mr. C. I just, yeah, help me with this.
Okay, thank you, Shakwa. So this is just one example of the rot that has set into the Nigerian oil.
In Bayelsa alone.
Yes. So it's just one state, and in 7 years, you've had over 1,086 oil spills, and 917 of these oil spills were caused by deliberate sabotage of the pipelines through the use of hacksaws or explosives, and that is an 84% rate. Now, it speaks to a larger problem, the poverty of the mind prevalent in the region and by extension the country. This is where the country gets its commonwealth from, where it gets its money from.
Mm.
Now, when injustice and criminality are allowed to prevail over a period of time, this is what you get. It also speaks volumes of the failure of the state actors to actively and effectively monitor the pipelines. Yes, they will argue that they traverse various creeks, various rivers, but that is just stories. Now, for people who to see stealing as a way of life.
Now, this I actually wanted to ask you a
Okay.
question because this also goes back to what Cheta was saying about the cynicism of members of certain members of the society. So, the
I
Director
was about
General
to
of
interrupt, but Shokwe has made the point. So
the Director General of Nostra had said that Nigeria loses billions of naira because of the spillage experience on this daily basis. But then to the people who are in the communities that he's asked that they must come out and protect these installations and tackle such vandals. Why would they?
Okay, so it's two things. He's being mischievous by half by suggesting that the billions of dollars lost regularly is just because of the oil spillage and these local attacks. There is an organized crime ring operating within Nigeria, stealing Nigeria's crude every single day.
and that crime ring cannot operate without the collusion of people in the security services, in the government, and in the government oil industry.
No,
Let's be honest about that. Just recently, the heroic whatever is the name of that vessel that was arrested in Equatorial
Idun,
Guinea,
yeah.
whatever,
The one
that
that
was arrested
fled.
in.
Mm.
What is the capacity of that oil tanker?
Three
It's
million
an oil
barrels.
super. Pardon?
3 million barrels.
What is 3 million barrels? Twice Nigeria's daily production. Do you think that twice Nigeria's daily production could have been loaded in Nigerian waters without the navy, the government knowing about it?
No, it's clear that the elements within the state are part of this criminal group.
So do you blame the lower downs in the society when they see such rampant criminality? Do you blame them for trying to get in on the act themselves?
Okay, gentlemen, I really want to touch on this story. We don't have much time, so let's take a look at the nation. Stop traveling to Northern Cyprus. Federal government warns Nigerians. They've cited the human rights abuses and meted out to our fellow countrymen whenever they get into the country. Very quickly.
um Again, this speaks to the lack of diplomatic news that has happened to Nigeria over the last few years. It's actually very shameful. Think about it this way. There used to be a time that Nigeria could summon, and in this case it would be the Turkish ambassador, because Northern Cyprus is recognized only by Turkey. and it's largely administered from Ankara, not so that's where the issue is. But telling us, oh, stop, don't travel there because of this, it tells you that we no longer have diplomatic heft. Nobody respects us. Nobody recognizes what we say. It's just hot air. Think about it this way: since this Russia-Ukraine war started 6 months ago, how many people from either the Russian side or the Western side have visited Nigeria to seek our input or our assistance or our acquiescence? None. But they visited Senegal, they visited South Africa, they visited Egypt, they visited Kenya, they visited. So see, Nigeria has just backslid and become um
Rudderless.
rudderless. Does not quite. So you see, when you have a ship flowing that is rudderless, but the captain is trying to steer it, you have a chance. In this case, the captain is not even there.
All right. I'm just going to end this show because we have come to the end. On these messages on YouTube, Olalikon Isaac says, Cheta is right. 2023 will still be cash and carry election. The Nigerian poor have not queued behind a political ideology that can liberate the nation. The middle class is the link for the change. Whilst on WhatsApp. B from Lucky says, thanks for that analysis, Chessa. The so-called middle class can also need to know that there are only not 1% of Nigeria's population, while the size of the grassroots is massive. Whilst Julia says, the duty of the citizenry and the society is to give all support, all priority to the move to rescue the public universities. Let's not forget that we need the universities and their comprehensive resources to clean up the primary school system ultimately. The government of Nigeria can be made to prioritize public universities and education. If people getting into the universities can't read or write, what I did, okay. And SPMO says kudos to your analyst for the morning. That's Mr. C, who is at Monsieur C across social media platforms, and Cheta, who is at Chickster across social media platforms. And he goes on to say Cheta makes too much sense over his analysis of the upcoming elections and money politics. Also, the matter of fuel theft is just laughable and confirms that we no longer have a country. And on that note, we end the show. Thank you so much, Cheta. Like I said, you can find him on social media at Chickster. And thank you, Mr. C, who is at Monsieur C with a triple E after that C. And that's that for Freshly Pressed.